Welcome back to the secret underground lair. So you can see I have the two towers now built for our rotisserie, and I use my little 3D printer in the actual secret underground lair and printed off these little knobs, so these bolts will come through the slots and be used to clamp our little bushing block in place. So I am now going to cut the bushing block. It's going to be 3 inches wide and about half the width of this, so it'll be about 4 1/4, 4.5 inches wide here, maybe a little bit more than that. So I'll cut that piece across here, cut it in half here, then drill a hole through them both, and that'll be our bushing block that can sit in here. And we'll attach these bushings, get the shaft put in place, and see where we go from there. Today's adventure. So with the bushing block cut, just sliding it in here. That's a snug fit. I think it's just a little bit too snug. On our other side here, this one fits very nicely. So we're within a 64th. This one I'm quite happy with. I'm going to keep that as is. This one I'm just going to do a little bit of sanding on one edge. He's just a little too snug. And that's the fit I'm looking for. Loose enough that it can move, but close enough that it'll just barely stick in there. So that's good. Okay. Next, I want to drill a 1/4 inch hole right through there that this can be captured by the bolt. So, over to the drill press. So the large bolt, I have a flat washer here that'll go on that side. I want to go through the hole. Coming out this side. Got the big spur on there to kind of trap the wood. And our nut, the knob. And tightening that down just grips that perfectly. That's doing exactly what I want it to do. So that's our combination for adjusting our bearing, our bushing block. I need to mount the bushing block in there. I'll get this side fitted and then take both pieces out, put the bushing block in. Okay, there's our bushing blocks. Slip in there. So we'll slip in here. And let's see what happens with the shaft in there now. All right, and that is the rotisserie now set up. What I'll need to do at this point is, of course, get the spacing and everything right. And I want to put in some blocks in here, a big disc in here that will keep our pedestal in the center of that shaft, both top and bottom. And then we can mount it to the table. Put our bed rail router sled on the top here. We'll mount that on. And then we have access to machining this. We are getting close. But, as you can expect, it's time for a bite of lunch. So I am ready now. I'm going to cut a 16-inch blank 16-inch diameter blank to fit in here. And I have that little piece of MDF here set up on my bandsaw, my circle cutting jig. So I'm ready to cut that out. Okay, that'll do for a circle. We'll need to drill a 1/2 inch hole through here to get this centered on our shaft, but let's just see how this fits in the pedestal. So that fits in there reasonably well. What I can see out of this fit is that the pedestal is a little bit proud on this side. In other words, this edge here sticks out a little bit in terms of kind of being a little oblong, but I think there's enough room there that we can make it work. All right, now let's make a blank for this end. So next up, I'm drilling the 1/2 inch hole through the center of each of these discs so that they'll slide onto the shaft. I'm also going to be drilling 2 1/2 inch holes on either side of that shaft to accommodate some threaded rods. We'll be back on that in a second. And I want to get these holes on either side to line up. So I'm just going to put a pin in there before I finish these off. And now for my last little bit on this little contraption, I need one more piece, just a flat bar that's going to stand out here on the end of this. And a little piece of maple will do the trick. This just needs to be a rough cut. I'll just trim it off with the bandsaw. I'll put a couple holes in there. So I'm going to drill this first hole out using the drill press, and then I'm going to line them up and drill them out again. So I've just put a pin in this top disc so that I can line this hole up, and we'll drill that out, put a pin in it, and do the other one. Okay, now you may be wondering what's with these discs and block here. It all has to do with a threaded rod. Let me show you. So this is how this contraption is going to work. Start with the block I just cut. That'll go on. Then take our pedestal. That'll go on. So this threaded rod is going to go through here. I have some washers somewhere. I'll go through that one. And then through our block up at the top. just going to put a washer and nut on here temporarily. Kind of keep that in place. Do the same thing, put another nut and washer on this threaded rod. That nut on there goes through the hole in our disc and up and through the hole in the block. So what that arrangement allows me to do is tighten the upper disc and force that disc up against the sides of the pedestal, kind of keeping it positioned. And as I tighten it, it will push the pedestal centered on the shaft. The trick, of course, is not to over tighten it because I don't want to be forcing the pedestal to split. But now the reason I'm taking this approach, I could put a screw through here into these discs, but of course I want to be routing this surface, so I really don't want to have any metal penetration. I'm just working my way up the disc here. Kind of a slow process. Okay, I'm going to stop there for now. And let's put on this bottom disc. So what has just happened is the top disc has now kind of centered itself where I want it to be. Okay, just kind of learned a technique here that'll work. What I did is I pushed the threaded rod up tight against, and not up tight against the upper plate, and then tighten the nuts from the top, and that drew the upper plate tight up against the sides of the pedestal. Then I'm able simply to tighten these guys, and that draws the base up here tight against the pedestal. So let me set this now into the far tower here and see what we get. And with the shaft now mounted in the far pedestal, we have our pedestal rotating freely on our little rotisserie. So what I need to do at this point is probably drop this down, raise this up, and get this surface parallel to the top here. So I'll concentrate on that. The other thing that I want to do is put this little stop collar on the shaft here to keep the pedestal from dropping down. The shaft itself is up against this plate here on the back of the tower, so the shaft is not going to move. But I do want to get it parallel. So let me concentrate on that for a minute. We'll come back when that's done. And there we have our rotisserie now up at the top and flush. Well, not flush, but parallel to the top. We do have these little arms here that stick out a little bit, so I actually may cut them off just with a handsaw so that they are out of the way and won't interfere with the router. So next operation is going to be getting the router sled mounted to this contraption, and then of course anchoring these onto the work table itself. But so far, I like the way that works. Here is the assembly complete. I still have to anchor it down here and at the far end, but the bed rail now is, the router sled portion is affixed onto our pillars. I have a couple screws here. I use these for the same screws that I use for the bed rail lathe. Bed rail router lathe that we were using earlier. The sled slides back and forth across our bed rail track, so that's good. I made this an adjustable fitting, so these are just a bolt with a washer that'll clamp the bed rail track here, so that if I'm using a shorter piece or longer piece, I can move that pillar along the track without any problem. Our height adjustment is good there. Our height adjustment is good there. We're pretty close to parallel. I'll double check that before I put the router to work here, but I think if I anchor this down, we can do a test. So let's do it. All right, we are ready for the bed rail rotisserie for its inaugural run. Never turned it on yet, so I know that I've got a couple high spots. I know I've got a bunch of low spots. So what I've learned is I've got a little bit of work to do on my glue ups to get this working a little better. But overall, let's see how we do. I'm going to start right here, and I'm just turning the drum by hand a little bit, and then I'm going to slide the router back and forth. I'm in the back of my mind, I'm toying with spinning this using a gear motor, but let's just see how it works by hand first. Here we go. Well, I guess I forgot to turn the camera on for that little episode. Sorry about that. Exciting. I'm not sure if the best approach is to be spinning the piece like this or to be holding it steady and moving the router back and forth. So I'm still experimenting with that. But I made another pass. I'm going to drop the router down a little bit more and we'll go again. This time I'll try and keep the camera on. By the way, I'm just going, again, 1/16 of an inch at a time. I've got a 3/4 inch flat bit with a 1/2 inch shank on the router, so it's a fairly beefy bit. All right, away we go again. Well, that is definitely rounding out this pedestal. So it's doing the desired job. I'm going to have to work a little bit on my glue ups, I think, but overall that pedestal is coming out okay. So I'm going to drop down 1/8 of an inch. Go again. I'll put you on fast forward for that one though. I'm quite pleased with how this is progressing. Notice I had to tighten up these nuts here. In fact, they're still a little loose. In fact, I'm going to put a lock washer on there just to kind of help prevent that from loosening. I tightened it up here. A couple observations about this mount up here that I've observed. It's the point of an observation, isn't it? So I'll make a couple little adjustments probably tomorrow, but I'll make one more pass on this. First, I'm going to replace these washers with lock washers though. All right, one more pass. I'll put you on fast forward for this. So there is our piece shaped. It's gone from a segmented piece to a nice round piece. How about that? I'm really pleased with the result of that. It turned out very well. I have, even after my glue up, I have a little flat spot here. You can see I put pencil lines all around the piece just to know where I had gone or not gone. A little flat spot here and here, and a little flat spot in here. Well, a slightly larger flat spot, but that is really close to the surface. So these spots I'm just going to sand out. So like I say, yeah, I'm very, very happy with the result of that. It turned out good. Tomorrow, what I want to do is sand this and cut this off at the angle that we want. So that's going to be our next little challenge. A few things I've observed about the piece itself. One was putting the lock washers on here is a good idea. The second thing is up at this end where I have my cross member here. This should actually have a taper across here. So I'm going to cut a taper into that. So next time we have a piece on there, as I route this away with the router, I'm actually loosening it up. So by having a taper on there, it'll keep tension on the drum a little better. And yeah, a big mess from the router, so a little bit of cleanup has to happen here. But again, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.